In 1984, a small movie about a bullied teenager and a quiet apartment handyman walked into theaters with almost no fanfare and quietly rewired American pop culture. No explosions, no superheroes, no billion-dollar franchise blueprint. Just a skinny kid from New Jersey, a bonsai tree, and a lesson disguised as karate. But here's what most people missed. The Karate Kid was never really about winning a tournament. It was about humiliation, economic collapse, cultural displacement, and the dangerous seduction of revenge. Every crane kick, every wax-on, wax-off moment was built on real pain, studio conflict, casting battles, and creative risks that nearly destroyed the film before it began. This wasn't nostalgia manufactured in a boardroom. It was a story forged from rejection, and that's exactly why it endured. But the real question is this: how close did Hollywood come to ruining it completely before it ever reached the screen? 1. The role that almost destroyed the film before it began. The most important decision in The Karate Kid was almost the one that killed it: casting Mr. Miyagi. Producers couldn't see past Pat Morita's sitcom persona from Happy Days. To them, he was a punchline, not a mentor. That blindness nearly stripped the film of its emotional core. Director John G. Avildsen had to secretly record Morita's audition just to prove the depth hiding behind the accent and the mustache. When Morita delivered Miyagi's quiet grief, the story of his wife and child lost in an internment camp, everything shifted. Suddenly, this teen karate movie carried the weight of American history. Morita didn't just act. He grounded the film in lived trauma and dignity. His performance earned an Academy Award nomination and transformed the movie's identity. Without him, Daniel's journey becomes a sports cliché. With him, it becomes generational healing. The soul of the film hung by a thread and almost slipped away because Hollywood mistook subtlety for weakness. 2. The story was born from a real beating. Long before the crane kick, there was a teenage boy humiliated at the 1964 World's Fair. Screenwriter Robert Mark Kamen was attacked so brutally that he made a private vow to never feel that powerless again. He began studying martial arts, not to win trophies, but to understand control. His early training emphasized aggression. It satisfied anger, but not balance. Only when he encountered Okinawan Goju Ryu did he grasp the philosophy that would become Miyagi-Do. Redirect force, don't chase revenge. That philosophy pulses through every scene. Daniel doesn't train to dominate Johnny. He trains to master himself. That distinction is why adults recognize something deeper beneath the teenage rivalry. This wasn't fantasy empowerment. It was a reflection of real humiliation, real discipline, and the long, uncomfortable path towards self-restraint. The emotional authenticity audiences felt in 1984 wasn't manufactured. It was drawn from a wound that never fully disappeared. 3. Daniel LaRusso was older than you think. Ralph Macchio was 22 years old when he played a high school senior. That casting choice seems routine, but it changed everything. A real 16-year-old might have struggled to carry the vulnerability and emotional complexity Daniel required. Macchio's slightly older maturity gave the character restraint. He wasn't cartoonishly innocent. He was proud, impulsive, occasionally reckless. That nuance made him believable to adult viewers who recognized the fragile ego of young men trying to prove themselves. Even more striking, several Cobra Kai actors were in their mid-20s. These weren't children playing bullies. They were adults portraying teenage aggression with unsettling realism. The age gap gave the conflict weight. Daniel looked smaller, younger, more outmatched. His victories felt earned rather than scripted. Hollywood illusion, in this case, strengthened authenticity. The boy who looked powerless carried just enough maturity to hold the story steady without collapsing into melodrama. 4. The tournament anthem was a rejected Rocky song. You're the Best feels inseparable from Daniel's final push through the All-Valley tournament. But the song wasn't written for him. It was originally meant for Rocky III. Sylvester Stallone passed on it in favor of Eye of the Tiger. That rejection left the track floating in search of a home. When The Karate Kid needed a montage anthem, the song found its second chance. And strangely, it fit better here. Rocky was already a champion defending his title. Daniel was a novice with months of training, facing years of experience. The lyrics overshoot reality, but that's why they work. They capture belief before evidence exists. In a decade defined by economic uncertainty and reinvention, that optimism resonated. A discarded anthem became the emotional engine of an underdog story that wasn't supposed to succeed. Sometimes the things rejected by giants end up defining the next generation. 5. The crane kick took more than balance, it took obsession. The The crane kick is etched into American pop culture, but it didn't come easily. Director Avildsen demanded precision low angles, perfect timing, emotional clarity. It took over 30 takes to get right. What makes the shot powerful isn't choreography, it's symbolism. Daniel stands on an injured leg, balanced yet vulnerable. He risks everything on a single motion. William Zabka's reaction, as Johnny sells the impact as much as the kick itself. That moment feels mythic because it compresses the entire narrative into one gesture: composure under pressure. The image endures not because it's realistic, but because it's aspirational. Adults watching in 1984 understood that life rarely offers fair fights. The crane kick wasn't about technique, it was about nerve, and the painstaking effort behind that shot mirrors the discipline the story preaches. Nothing iconic happens by accident. 6. The film hid a quiet financial disaster. One of the film's most overlooked layers involves Daniel's mother. The LaRussos move from New Jersey to California for a job opportunity at Rocket Computers. Then the job disappears from the narrative. The tie-in novel reveals the missing piece. The company went bankrupt before Lucille even began working. That detail reframes everything. They aren't simply adjusting to a new neighborhood, they're stranded after economic collapse. The modest apartment complex in Reseda isn't a quirky setting, it's financial reality. That subtext adds urgency to Daniel's frustration and Lucille's exhaustion. Adults in the audience felt this instinctively. Relocation isn't glamorous, it's destabilizing. Economic vulnerability hums quietly beneath every scene. The story of karate and rivalry sits on top of a deeper truth about resilience during uncertainty. That quiet realism gave the film texture. It wasn't fantasy, it was survival disguised as adolescence. 7. The ending almost ruined the emotional high. The script didn't originally end with the freeze-frame victory. It continued into the parking lot confrontation, where Kreese assaults Johnny and Miyagi intervenes. Test audiences felt drained after the tournament. Extending the conflict deflated the triumph. The scene was shelved and later repurposed for the sequel. That editorial decision preserved the emotional lift of the original film. Audiences walked out celebrating, not unsettled. The choice shaped the movie's legacy. Ending on victory reinforced hope rather than bitterness. It's a subtle reminder that storytelling isn't just about what happens, it's about where you stop. By trimming the darker aftermath, the film maintained its mythic glow. The world might remain complicated, but in that moment, discipline triumphed. Sometimes restraint behind the camera determines how long a story lives in the audience's memory. 8. Corporate power quietly changed Hollywood. During production, Columbia Pictures was owned by Coca-Cola. Product placement wasn't incidental, it was strategic. Brand logos were woven into scenes with unusual visibility. Actors weren't thrilled. Ralph Macchio reportedly resented being forced to verbalize brand names like a commercial pitchman. That tension marks a turning point in Hollywood economics. The film sits at the dawn of aggressive corporate synergy that would later dominate blockbuster filmmaking. Even Clint Eastwood, after disputes surrounding casting decisions, reportedly banned Coca-Cola products from his own sets. The film that preached discipline and authenticity was simultaneously a template for commercial integration. That contradiction reflects the industry itself, art and commerce locked in constant negotiation. The story on screen promoted balance. Behind the scenes, balance was harder to find. 9. The kid who knew no karate became the symbol of it. When filming began in 1984, Ralph Macchio was not a trained martial artist. He had taken a few childhood lessons, but nothing close to the skill the screen required. What he did have was years of tap dancing training discipline, timing, and body control. Fight choreographer Pat E. Johnson built Daniel's movements piece by piece, drilling each strike until it looked instinctive. On screen, it felt authentic. Off screen, it was construction. Yet something unexpected happened over the decades. Through sequels and Cobra Kai, Macchio kept training. The performance slowly became practice. In 2025, more than 40 years after the original film, he earned a legitimate black belt. The actor who once pretended to understand karate ultimately embodied it, proving that repetition, patience, and commitment can turn fiction into reality. The Karate Kid endures because it speaks to something deeper than nostalgia. It reminds us that dignity matters more than dominance, that mentorship can redirect a life, and that discipline quietly outlasts talent. Beneath the crane kick and the tournament cheers lies a simple truth: balance is learned, not gifted. For those who grew up with this film, its legacy isn't just cinematic, it's personal. It shaped how we understood resilience, pride, and restraint. And that's why it still resonates decades later. If this deep dive brought back memories or revealed something new, make sure to like, subscribe, and share the channel. We're revisiting the films that shaped generations one story at a time.